Hi, and welcome to Coffee and a Story, a narrative fantasy podcast by Elmburg. This show will only be semi-linear, meaning that while there is progress episode to episode, they do not need to necessarily be watched in order. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode, and I hope you like it. We start our story in Elmburg, a primarily elven town nestled several days from the next town. Elmburg itself sits at the foot of a lively volcano, whose ashes fertilizes their farms, and lava flows to the foundation of the city that masterfully combines architecture and magic to control the natural disaster. Due to the cost of building and maintaining the foundation, however, the small remote town was forced to build up as much as stone could, and the majority of gardens are grown along the walls and roofs of homes. Rhet himself is a young elf that fancies himself an adventurer, although he does nothing any more dangerous than use his heavy iron sword to traverse the foundation between eruptions and knock hardened lava from plumbing. He finds himself wandering into Little Elm, the town's capital building that hosts a variety of city-owned revenue sources. He takes a side entrance rarely traveled due to his unfortunate location, and is shocked to see a guard. "Oh, you look a little nervous there."
"It's my first day. Alaj said to make sure nobody steals from the barrels."
It's typically just flour in those. I'm sure you'll have no problem. I'm sorry, I'm not very good with humans. Would it be wrong in assuming you're young?"
"I'm 16, sir. Sheriff Alaj Sunbreak wanted to speed up my training."
"Speaking of the sheriff, I'm off to meet her now. Bye." Rhet leaves his brief conversation behind him and continues on. He struggles to push the heavy side entrance door open, so the human guard quickly helps him. "Oh, thank you."
"Anytime, sir."
Immediately, at the table closest to the side entrance of the tavern, is Alaj the sheriff facing away from the elf as she looks intently at the cards in the hands of a beastly amalgamation of mammalian and reptilian features. The snake-like humanoid is holding up a tarot card to the very confused-looking sheriff as he wears an uncannily long smile across his lizard-like face. Alaj mutters, "How did you do that?"
"That's my secret."
"Is it a spell, or—" "Rhet! Oh, hello, Rhet. You're just on time for our appointment. I think. I have no way of telling time indoors. But this guy can read minds?" Rhet continues to look at the Naga in complete shock as his genetic fear begins to tell him to run. Rhet is capable of reasoning, of knowing that the time in which Nagas mistook elves as no higher than wildlife was several thousand years past, but he still freezes at the thought that there is a creature in his vicinity whose ancestors were known for eating smaller humanoids. The paranoia was so dyed in the wool of Elmburg citizens that they still hold wearing unnecessarily enchanted jewelry as part of their day-to-day culture from the rumor that Nagas can't eat magic. Even the guards of Elmburg still wear spikes on their armor. "Are you okay, Rhet?" Alaj, unlike the vast majority of Elmburg citizens, is not an elf, but instead an 8-foot-tall guardian, a large race of feline humanoids known for their manes and durability in fights. Alaj herself is aged beyond her years as a reckless combatant, although she keeps in her fighting experience. The hairs of her mane are gray, as well as her muzzle, and there isn't a strand of fur on her that is as vibrant as Rhet remembers from when he had first wandered into Elmburg. "Yes, Alaj, I'm fine." "Well, come on, sit down." Alaj gestures to the bench that Khali is leaned over as he couldn't make use of the furniture in Elven Town. Rhet slowly and cautiously makes his way to sit next to the beast that dwarfs the tavern, built to accommodate anyone from 3'6" Rhet to an 8-foot-tall Alaj. The Naga grins down at Rhet to show his comically small and sharp teeth. He puts down the cards and picks up a piece of chipped white stone.
"See this stone?"
"Yes?" The Naga rubs his hands together, and when he separates them, the rock is gone. "That's easy, you cast minor illusion on it." Rhet reaches out to grab the presumed invisible stone, but instead only feels the rough palm of the monster. He freezes as he tries to reason as to what happened to the stone as he realizes that he would have felt if a spell had been cast so close to him. He quickly tries to use his elven connection to Arcana to try to detect any magical items, but the Naga only carried the mundane. Once the Naga was satisfied with the amount of confusion he had caused, he reaches his long-clawed hand near Rhet's face and pretends to pull the stone from behind Rhet's ear.
Well, I didn't know elf ears could hide rocks."
"Are you a god?"
"What? No, I just hid the rock while you were distracted by watching my hands rub. I don't know divinity."
Rhet doesn't look entirely convinced as his already on-edge mood flourishes to full-out panic. He rests his elbows on the table as he tries to track through his memory when the rock could have been hidden without using magic.
"I'm going to go get some food."
After the Naga slumps off the bench, Alaj pulls the remaining attention from the distracted elf. "If you've been reading the paper, Rhet, you know that there have been plenty of disappearances lately. People are just going missing, sometimes in pairs. As you can imagine, my guard is stretched completely thin, trying to keep an armed official everywhere. I'm sure you saw the young guard in the hall, but I just don't have the manpower to both protect and investigate. Rhet, I want you to go around and question the family of last night's victim. Here's their address.
When Rhet unfolds the paper, he discovers the victim lived in the same apartment building as he.
Yeah, sure, LJ. They weren't abducted from their home, were they? No, she was out for the night, and I want you to find out where she was headed and why. That's all. I don't suspect you'll find any trouble, and just put anything you learn down on my desk when you have the time, and I'll have it forwarded to whoever can investigate. Do I have detectives? This is something I should have asked myself before now. You know, I'm gonna go get started on that. Hey, before I go, what's up with the Naga? Khali? He's just passing through. Said he was on his way to Sun's Marsh, which is south of here. Why? Just haven't seen a Naga here before is all.
Rhet continues on his way out of the tavern and finds himself again in the hallway. As he passes a stack of stray barrels left out by careless deliverymen, he sees his primal fear. Around the teenage guard is a Naga that Rhet recognizes as much bigger than the one in the tavern. Though the Naga is wrapped around the guard, it's so loose that it makes no physical contact with the human. Rhet can sense malice in the air, so he quickly takes cover behind the barrels and grabs the hilt of his sword to ready himself. The guard is petrified. The guard is so scared that he is not shaking but instead is frozen in intensity. The Naga grabs the arm of the guard in one hand and forces the spear away with the other before placing it aside. Then it takes the guard's helmet. Lastly, as though to prove Rhet's irrational fear and only the second Naga he meets, the beast strikes down with an unhinged jaw. Rhet draws his sword and begins to jolt forward, but just moments before his mind becomes too fogged by adrenaline to perceive, he notices the Naga flicker its eyes at the elf as though to make sure he was watching as he quickly devours the young guard without a fight. Knowing immediately it was a trap meant to lure out and overpower the only witness, Rhet instead turns tail and flees to crash into the entrance door to the tavern to force it open. It greatly breaks his stride, and LJ looks at the combat-readied elf with shock.
The guard, LJ, there's an attacker.
Without waiting for a cue, LJ barrels through the hallway with her battle hammer drawn. Rhet and Khali follow and want to help, but by the time they sprint down the hall, they are far too late. There is no guard. There is no Naga. Leaned against the wall is a gently placed spear and helmet, and thrown carelessly to the floor as though in a hurry are a spiked pair of boots.
Large. It was larger than Khali. Red-purple scales. It just ate him whole. That means there might still be time.
LJ sprints outside in a rush, but this time, Rhet and Khali do not follow. They only stand in the hall.
Of course. The one time I step into an elven town just to spend the night on my way to visit my hometown, this happens. I'll be surprised if I can get in an inn now.
Well, to be fair, you probably weren't going to get in an inn even before this.
Rhet looks at the guard garb. It's too small for the other human guards, and no elven guards want to wear something made for humans.
Hey, don't tell LJ.
Rhet grabs the boots and helmet that fit clunkily on him, but would provide the elf with a little more protection. Khali, for himself, grabs the spear that was more to the tone of a vaguely triangular rock fixated to a cheap wooden pole.
After this, I'm going to need to protect myself.
I get it. Well, I'm gonna go home and think about what's happened, I suppose.
I'll ask around to see if there's a place that'll have me.
If anyone would know, it's Bernard. He moves around, but he's typically outside once the sun sets. A homeless half-elf vampire, you can't really miss him.
Yeah, I'll stick around until then, I guess. Thank you.
No problem.
With that, Rhet and Khali go their separate ways. Rhet is so distracted by the recent trauma that he does not stop for dinner, nor does he question his neighbors about their missing family member. Once he is in his flat, he checks the door periodically through the night to ensure that it is locked. Hi, and thank you for listening. Right now is our first commercial break, but I don't have any advertisers. As for episode 2, are selling for $1 for personal messages, $5 for commercial. Since I don't have advertisers yet, here's some music. If you're listening on YouTube, an ad should have played here. If not, consider letting me through your ad blocker so I could be one fraction of a cent closer to affording a banjo I can't play because both of my wrists are in braces. Because I gave in about a subscription to World of Warcraft. Enjoy the show! In the morning, Rhet is making himself tea when he hears a knock at the door.
Rhet, I need to talk to you.
Rhet undoes the locks to see the sheriff's tired body shuffle in. Despite her enormous stature, she suddenly seems so small.
I wasn't able to find the attacker. People just pointed me to Khali half the time, and I ended up going in a lot of circles. At least we know that the missing are probably dead now, and we have some news to give to the families.
Families? Oh, LJ, I forgot completely to ask about the victim's family for clues.
There's no point in that now. I have a bigger job for you. And I won't lie, although I'm sure nothing will happen, it's not exactly low risk. I have a bad feeling that there are spies covering the tracks of this devourer in my ranks, so if we're going to find this man, I can't just send my guard to look for him. The Ashland gang that runs the brewery in Uptown have the broadest connections. I need you to question them.
See, I'm not, I just use this sword as a pickaxe, you know that, right? I'm not exactly the police type.
I'll give you 50 gold if you find anything.
Well, I suppose there's a first for anything.
If you can convince them, I want you to take Khali with you. 1, because the gang might be quicker to talk if there's a Naga around, and 2, I worry that him being idle without an elf following around might be bad for his health, if you know what I mean. Word spreads quick here.
Sounds fair. Do you know where he went?
He checked into Little Elm last night at the Capitol. If I had to guess, that's probably where he still is.
Alright, I'll start there.
Oh, and, if he's not there, take this.
LJ hands Rhet a note, and when Rhet looks at it, he sees that she has written, under direct order of the Sheriff of Elmburg, Khali is to be released. Although her handwriting is professional, her signature always looks like a scribble that was so incomprehensible that no one has successfully copied it.
A good call, thank you, and get some rest.
After letting the exhausted sheriff out, Rhet heads down to the Capitol. When he heads in through the side entrance of Little Elm he had taken the day before, he sees 2 fully armored guards where a single trainee had once stood. Instead of heading to the tavern, Rhet instead takes a very narrow staircase to the 2nd floor that housed Little Elm Inn, a place designed with rooms barely large enough for a human-sized bed to fit in. Travelers often had no choice but to stay in Elmburg due to it being a remote location along a long road connecting 2 major cities. Even the humans and elves that fit in the tiny room often complain about the noise from the tavern downstairs, and guardians often wake with stiff joints as the beds are much too small for them. Coming out of a room with sheets in her hand is a cleaning elf.
Excuse me, miss, in which room is the Naga staying in?
The Naga, he didn't fit in any of our rooms. Apparently he tried to sleep in the hall, but there was a lot of complaints, so the manager last shift called the guard.
I'll check there.
Rhet again has to head down the hall and see the 2 guards that make his stomach churn until he reaches the entrance to the jail. Although Elmburg has a proper prison, the jail sees more traffic. He climbs down a flight of stairs and gives the station guard LJ's note. The guard tears up the note and unlocks the door so Rhet can see Khali sleeping in a corner. Several hungover locals and tourists are sat about in the jail, as well as a few teenagers that look either scared by the fact they're in jail or look nonchalant about the situation. Rhet approaches Khali and realizes that the way he was coiled would make it impossible to reach his shoulder to shake it, so he ends up attempting to practically scale the Naga. Khali wakes with a bit of a start, but calms when he recognizes Rhet. What's up?
LJ wrote a note to let you out of here, and, she also wants us to investigate the Ashland gang at the brewery.
Hold on, I just woke up.
We can head over and I'll explain the details on the way.
Can we head to the tavern first? I know elves don't eat very often, but I have to eat in the morning.
Oh, yes, of course.
At the tavern, Khali exhausts his funds to purchase the majority of a boar and mutters for the first few minutes of eating about the cost of meat in Elmburg. Rhet notices that while Khali does cut it up around the bones, the pieces he cuts are large enough to be a full meal for a human.
I thought Nagas prefer to eat things whole.
Only if we don't have the time to cook. Tastes awful, and bones are hard to digest. If I eat something whole, I have to rest for a good while, somewhere warm.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, we don't really chew because our teeth isn't made for it, but we do cook and cut things up first for the most part.
Well, Khali, as I was saying earlier, LJ wants us to investigate the brewery. She's paying us 50 gold each, and she says she doesn't expect it to be dangerous, although anything can happen.
Well, I wasn't planning on sticking around any longer than a night, but it's still a few days' ride to Greenpool, and I spent all my money on an inn I can't stay in and a boar. As long as it doesn't take very long, I'll do it.
So, why did you stop at Elmburg? I get it's the only town for a while, but we don't see visitors that aren't human or elven, sometimes a guardian.
Normally, I plan around so I don't have to stop at elven cities whenever I go up to Velador, but the driver I hired got mugged and his carriage stolen, so we had to accept a ride from a stranger who was headed here.
Talk about wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Once they were finished eating, Rhet leads Khali to the brewery. This end of town is not regularly pressure washed like near the capital, but instead the white and blue stones were stained brown under the several inches of dirt and ash that accumulate from the frequent eruptions. Khali prefers the dirt as it's softer to slither over, but Rhet finds it hard to traverse in his two big boots. Eventually they come across a particularly run-down looking building labeled Ashland Brewery. In front of the brewery is a single beefy elf in a black tee and nondescript jeans who lets the two in at the side of the Elmburg insignia on Rhet's trainee helm. Once in, they realize they're in an eerily empty sales room. A receptionist is in the back recording something in a logbook that she quickly closes at the sight of the adventurers. "Can I help you?"
Yes, you can actually help us help you. You see, we're here because of the recent disappearances, and evidence is linking that there's a good chance the next victim will be somebody who works here. Have you noticed anything out of place lately?
"Do you have a warrant?"
Yes, of course we have a warrant.
Nope.
No?
I love LJ, but she doesn't think that far ahead.
Well, we're only stopping in to talk to people and figure out who might be the next victim. We'll only be a few minutes.
"Nope. I don't trust a word you're saying."
Well, this is a lost cause. Come on, we have to get a warrant.
Ugh. You know that'll take a few weeks.
Rhet and Khali go outside, and immediately the Naga begins to slither around the building looking for another way in. Rhet quickly catches on and begins to look as well. While Rhet is thinking about the possibility of crawling through the vents, Khali grabs him and puts him under his arm like a football before lifting himself up, more or less throwing himself into an open window around 15 feet off the ground. Inside the brewery are about 4 elves, one of which saw the magnificent stunt that Khali had just pulled, and Rhet was too distracted by the fact he had been picked up to notice. Once in, the two adventurers notice that the elves didn't see them enter, although they seem indifferent whenever they look up. One elf, however, looks absolutely terrified at the visual of the Naga, whose weight alone was enough to kill. Beyond that, the elf is so shaken, so paled with fear, that Rhet knows something is up and begins to approach.
Have you seen him too? Khali isn't the same Naga, I promise.
The elf looks as though a large weight has been taken off his shoulders at the news. Rhet decides to carry Khali's lie.
Look, we're here because we have evidence to conclude that the next victim will be somebody from here. Do you know anything?
The boss doesn't like me talking about it.
We're not part of the guard. You can trust us.
Like they'd let a Naga into the guard. I guess you're right. Look, I lied to LJ about it. My wife wasn't out on town when she was abducted. We were all at home, all of us were. One moment we were having dinner, and the next just this beast had broken into our home, and my wife went to hold him back while I had the kids. The boss said that if I tell the guard, they'll want to search my house and might find something they can trace back to him, but I don't keep anything illegal in my home, and he knows this. He's just paranoid, so don't search my house, please. I just want whoever did this, whatever this beast is, captured.
So this Naga into your home?
Yes, and he knew he saw me, and it felt like he was trying to taunt me out.
Well, I'd hate to be morbid, but if that Naga did the same thing to your wife what happened to that guard, then he would be too weak to chase you. Instead, he was probably hoping to pull you out so he could overpower you. A trap.
Do you know where that came from, or where he went, or who he might be working with?
No idea. He came and he went, and I hid back.
This boss of yours, does he have any reason to want your wife dead?
What? No, I mean, sure they didn't get along, and yeah, the boss didn't like how she was talking about how I needed to leave here, but I worked for that man for years. I know for a fact he wouldn't go so far for something so petty.
I only ask because it seems a bit suspicious. Whatever is going on seems organized, and your boss is the only organized criminal I know, and not to mention it sounds like he may have had a motive.
After a moment of thinking it over, the elf goes from absolutely shocked at the suggestion to a look of cold realization. After a moment longer, the cold dread turns into a dense hatred. Down that short hall is a door that leads to another hall. At the end of that is the boss's office. He ain't guarded today. With that, the elf suddenly fails to acknowledge the existence of the adventurers and just continues to sweep the floor. Rhet and Khali themselves decide to follow the instructions, but when it comes to the door to the second hallway, behind it is yet another elf. This elf, however, isn't dressed like the other ones at the brewery, and she doesn't look to be from Elmburg. She is dressed with a black tabard that reads Echo in big gray letters, and she has a knife in her hand. Without hesitation, she charges. Khali, acting quickly, clumsily takes a spear and whacks the assassin elf, interrupting her charge. Taking the downtime for his advantage, Rhet immediately brings out his shield and sword to strike, but the dull blade, nicked from the fact it had been used mostly against rocks, only bruises her arm. The assassin pushes Rhet away and jabs her dagger at Khali to get him in the side, doing a good bit of damage and causing the inexperienced Naga to slither back and spend a moment in pain, losing his easy opportunity to attack. Rhet, however, stays collected enough to swing again, but he completely misses as she dodges back before striking only to get her dagger stuck in Rhet's shield. She jumps back and is assessing the situation. Khali then recognizes the tabard as he has time to reflect. Being well-traveled, he immediately recognizes it as a guild that specializes in stealing goods and people to sell thousands of miles away where anyone would be able to reclaim them. He clutches the spear and jabs it rather than swinging it, but its dull end only knocks the breath out of the assassin. Rhet, not wanting the assassin to rearm herself, throws his shield behind him, wields his little sword in both hands, and stands his ground.
Why are you attacking?
I didn't want to attack you, just got in the way. The assassin pulls out a second dagger from the fold of her tabard that Rhet recognizes immediately as enchanted. He leaps at her with a sword drawn over his head, and as he strikes down, the assassin acts fast enough to stab him in the stomach and throw him to the ground. Rhet finds himself almost immediately paralyzed as cold spreads from his wound throughout his body. The frost enchantment is nearly killing him, so he can only watch helplessly as the assassin charges at the Naga with a weapon that was double effective against reptilian creatures. Khali positions himself as the assassin runs towards him. He jabs the spear forward and hits the chest of the elf. Although the spear is too dull to pierce the skin, the force breaks several ribs into the assassin's lungs, and it is obvious that without help, she'll be mortally wounded. Determined to the finish, the assassin tries again. Khali does not use the spear and instead resorts to a primitive action by grabbing the elf and immediately coiling around her before she has a chance to stab him. While a Naga is typically only strong enough to crush small wild animals, the power combined with the existing injury is enough to kill. Khali quickly throws the dead elf to the ground in horror of what had just gone down. Khali looks behind him and sees that all 4 worker elves have gathered to look on in awe and confusion. Then the door to the office opens to let a large elf stumble out while holding his hand to a wound. The boss looks down at the dead assassin, at Rhet, who is lying near motionless on the floor, and then up to Khali, to whom he speaks.
You're not the same Naga, are you?
As what?
Didn't think so. Do you know why there was an Echo Guild assassin in my office?
Nope. I have to say that stumped me, although we were expecting the, other Naga to be here.
Is that frozen elf there another assassin, or?
Oh gosh, no, that's Rhet.
Suddenly snapping back to reality, Khali readies one of the few spells he knows by placing both hands to the end of his face as though in prayer, breathing deeply, and then placing his hands on Rhet. Slowly, he feels the elf's rapid, shallow breathing regulate as the wound closes and the body warms. Once Rhet is as healed as could be, Khali then heals the injured boss and himself. The boss searches the bodies of the assassins before handing a batch of goods to the Naga.
Alright, so I found 50 gold on them, which you can keep for your help here. After all, I certainly couldn't have taken on both of these assassins myself. I also brought you two a couple of partial restore potions. They taste awful, but they can do a bit of healing, make you feel a little fuller, and cure poisoning in a pinch. Good for, almost getting stabbed to death by an assassin with a poisoned dagger. There was also this letter on the one in my office. I think may be important for whatever you came here for.
The boss opens the letter and reads it aloud.
One of the Ashland is a witness.
Take them all out, starting with the boss. The boss elf looks at the gang member that Rhet had interrogated earlier.
Look, I'm sorry. I should have just let you tell the guard about what happened.
The boss hands the letter to Khali and looks him in the eyes.
You take this straight to Elijah. Don't let anyone stand in your way. Tell Elijah the truth about what happened to that man's wife, and you let her know it wasn't my fault he lied, not his. I need to face justice for what I did, and it's a shame it took almost getting killed by a couple of rookie assassins to do it. I'll see you out.
Khali picks up Rhet, who is only barely conscious and still unable to move, and helps him to his feet. He slithers in a way to make his arm close enough for Rhet to grab onto for whenever he staggers and nearly falls in his weak state. No amount of healing could undo how close he had come to death. As they passed through the receptionist's room, the boss quickly ran up to the receptionist and thanked her for trusting her guts enough to let the two adventurers in, before continuing to escort them out all the way back to Little Elm to make sure no one got the wrong idea about Khali. Although Elijah isn't in her office, she is found in her garden, where she likes to stand whenever she has something on her mind. She looks shocked to see Rhet's state.
Wow, you look terrible.
Thanks, I almost died.
Well, did you find anything?
The gang didn't do it, but one of them was a witness. They saw the same thing as Rhet, a big Naga that ate someone and then fled after, and we also found 2 assassins from the Echo Guild. The bodies are still at the brewery.
I see. I'll get my royal illusionist to see if he can't figure out where the Echo Guild is leaking into the city. You two get some rest, and I'll probably have something for you two in the morning.
Yeah, do you have some place other than the inn for me to go? I got arrested last night, and that's not ideal.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't suppose you could fit in the inn anyway.
Khali, you can stay at my apartment.
Oh, are you sure?
Look, I was dead, and you literally brought me back to life with whatever arcana you have a hold of, so yes, absolutely, I refuse to go unguarded. And frankly, you probably don't want to be either, especially with the Echo Guild at our door.
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, thank you, Rhet.
After disclosing everything they could to Elijah, the two headed back to Rhet's apartment, where Rhet crawls in the bed and Khali makes himself as comfortable as he can by coiling on the floor.
Do you need a bed?
Oh, no. We usually sleep on the ground. Just this apartment wasn't built for it.
Oh, I see.
After the two settled down for a mostly restless night, they then share tea in the morning before they heard a knock. When Elijah lets herself in, it startles Rhet so badly that he quickly uses his arcana to summon energy from the ethereal plane to crystallize into the material. From a mixture from his lack of experience in combat magic, and realizing mid-spell that it was just Elijah, he only summons a small chunk of crystal that clanks against Elijah's armor, lands on the floor, and quickly disintegrates back to its home plane.
Okay. We found out where they're stashing stolen goods while waiting for them to cool down near the city, but unfortunately the Echo were one step ahead of us in catching their proper hideout. One of the elves you had killed happened to also be a member of my guard, so until I know which in my guard are moles and who are trustworthy, I can't send any on such a sensitive mission like this. So, that's where you two come in. I want you to clear out the Echo storage facility, find anything with information on it, and either move on your own or bring it to me directly. But do not give it to the guard, alright?
I understand.
Now, Khali, I'm sorry, but I didn't have anything I could give to you. Everything was built for elves here. Rhet, you, however.
From the cloth sack she had brought with her, Elijah pulls out a helm that Rhet recognizes as ancient elven armor, no doubt thousands of years old. Elves were shorter back then, so it would be a perfect fit for a tiny modern elf like Rhet. The little elm guard wore the ancient armor during festivals, or in the humans and taller elves' cases, replicas of it, so no doubt there was plenty laying around.
Now, this armor is heavy and it's a bit soft, but it's a hell of a lot better than the cloth tunic you wear. I didn't have anything to replace that, barely a sword at this point.
I like my sword, and besides, I'm more skilled at magic anyway. I'll try my hand at Arcana when it comes down to it again.
And, Khali?
Yeah, I love delving into criminal activity with no armor on and nothing but a spear you gave someone you never thought would see combat. That's my idea of a good time.
You might find some armor down there, and if you successfully clear out any hostiles in the warehouse, I'll pay 500 gold each.
Yeah, that's enough to maybe die over, I suppose.
Leave whenever you want. It's a 2-hour walk from town, so you might want to pack some goods.
Once Elijah leaves, Khali finishes his tea as he watches Rhet pack a couple of apples in a knapsack before beginning to put on the armor. The helmet itself has 2 menacing horns with a few extra spikes, the shoulder armor is designed to be just as sharp, and the boots and bracers are segmented so that each piece can be drawn out to be sharp blades. The armor, being thousands of years old, is designed specifically to make it so no reptilian beast could pick up the wearer, let alone eat them. It was an added bonus that it could make extremely close-range combat with the wearer dangerous in lieu of the ability to move quickly.
That looks heavy.
Oh, that's right, I forgot, you're a carnivore, you can't eat these apples, can you?
Well, I can, but it won't do me any good.
I'll pack some eggs as well. I know it's not much, but it's the only meat I think we'll keep for the whole trip. After Rhet packs a few eggs, he and Khali head out for a long walk to their mission point. Once where Elijah said it would be, they notice a bloody, torn echo tabard in the dirt, and next to it, a very nice spear with a frost enchantment that had been tossed to the ground.
I guess someone had a bad time here.
Well, judging by the shape of that tabard, they're not going to miss that spear. Just as Khali moves forward, Rhet notices that the dirt surrounding the tabard was loose, as though it had been recently messed with. But as he reaches forward to stop Khali, the ground gives. Khali, pulled down by his own weight, falls 30 feet into a pit and becomes dazed, but Khali manages to grab a hold of a rock before falling. However, the weight of his armor makes it so that when he attempts to climb back up, he is met with him losing his grip and falling. Khali makes an effort to catch Rhet, seeing as the height could be fatal for such a tiny elf, but in positioning his hands to not get injured by the pointy armor, he catches Rhet in a way that slightly injures the elf.
Oh, Rhet, are you okay?
Oh, I think I dislocated my hip.
Oh, here, let me put you down and try to pop it back. I ran a spot back home before I started adventuring, which also doubles as a cheap chiropractor more or less, but I've never, worked with an elf before.
While Khali is contemplating how to go about the injury, Rhet looks around and notices that one side of the pit has bars rather than dirt, and behind those bars was a lobby-like area where an elf and human and echo tabards were stood looking completely amused that someone had fallen into the trap. From frustration, Rhet raises his hand, conjures energy from the void enough to form a crystal bolt, and tosses it at the human. It hits, but the human is merely staggered. In response, Khali loses concentration, and the Echo Elf pulls out their bow and arrow. They didn't take the time to properly aim, but nonetheless, the arrow critically strikes Rhet in the chest through his armor in a manner that even surprises the archer. Khali reacts as quickly as he can to remove the arrow and quickly heal Rhet enough to keep him from immediately dying, but in doing so, he can't attack and is instead shot and missed at by the archer. The Echo human, only armed with a sword, finds himself completely useless. Khali helps Rhet to his feet, and Rhet again conjures a crystal bolt that strikes and kills the Echo Elf, and then looks at the confused Echo Human.
Look, pal, we can either pick you off from here because I know for a fact we're more skilled in ranged combat than you, or you can come in here.
The Echo Human knows it's a trap to get him to open the door to the pit, but he also realizes that it was entirely true that he couldn't kill them from his current position. He decides to take his chances on the nearly dead elf and underarm Naga, but as soon as he opens the door, Khali drops Rhet, picks up the enchanted spear, and jabs it. The human is instantly killed and the door is unlocked, but Khali first takes the time to heal and reset Rhet.
Ugh, I have to get used to dying all the time.
So much for that armor, huh?
It's outdated stuff. Who thought gold was a good thing to alloy into armor? I don't know.
Oh, so that's... Gold is probably the worst thing to make armor from.
Oh, you think that's stupid? Ancient royal guards of Feldor use glass for their armor because it could be stained to look cool. Despite how many of them were made, very few of those sets still exist because they break so easily.
Huh. I suppose I shouldn't complain. At home in Greenpool, we don't even really use armor. Our police just have some padding, but that's about it.
Must be peaceful where you live.
Khali resets Rhet's hip, causing him to yelp in pain before eventually being held to his feet. Once out of the pit, Rhet finds a staircase that leads up and takes it to realize that there was a hidden trapdoor not too far from the pit that they could have entered from had they not fallen for the trap. They ignore this fact and move on to the next room. There, to the right, are crates upon crates overflowing with stolen goods. Many of them are filled with different sets of official uniforms and armor so that members could pose as police in different cities, and others were filled with valuables. To the left are 4 small cages, 3 of which were empty. The 4th contained a resting Naga that struck Rhet as incredibly small.
Oh god, she's just a kid.
Khali rushes over to the cage and easily forces the weak lock open. The noise wakes up the young Naga, who drowsily stares emptily at Rhet. Her scales look dehydrated and malnourished, and her eyes were glossed over as though she were dead. Nonetheless, her eyes were fixated on the elf.
She's been nearly starved to death. Rhet, give her those eggs you packed and one of the partial restores.
Without hesitation, Rhet gives the Naga the eggs that she ate whole and then the potion that she doesn't seem to care for the taste of, even though she acknowledges that it makes her feel better. And only then does she leave the cage despite an obvious fear of being outside of it.
Where are you from?
The child does not answer, but her stare becomes less blank.
Look, you relax here, and I'll take care of anyone else. Come on, Rhet.
With the newfound determination, Khali leads Rhet to the door to the next room, but instead of going in, he pauses and goes completely still for a moment, even going so far as to stop breathing. After a long while's silence, he looks at Rhet.
There's 4 pulses in there. All 4 are human-sized, but none of them strike me as particularly strong.
How can you tell that?
These little things on my head are not just for show, you know. They're meant to detect vibrations in water, but on land they can double as pulse detection. Kinda like how elves can sense magic. Unfortunately, though, they are really sensitive, so if they get hit, I'm kind of down for the count.
Got you. Well, let's head in, yeah?
Khali draws a spear and charges through the door and strikes the first humanoid he sees, a harpy, and kills them instantly. Rhet also manages to strike an Echo Human with a crystal bolt that greatly injures them. Acting quickly, a guardian charges Rhet with a dagger, but it only hits his armor, and Rhet elbows her away in a way that cuts her arm up a little. Rhet then takes the opportunity to strike the staggered guardian with the enchanted dagger that was still stuck in his shield, and she is immediately incapacitated. The human that had been struck by a crystal bolt draws his bow and fires at Rhet, but without the sheer luck of the Echo Elf in the lobby, it only clinks off the elven armor. Khali strikes the human and kills him, leaving only one hostile that had only been standing shocked as he watched the fight go down. The remaining male harpy, or Abi as they are more often called, is not in the black Echo tabard like the others, but is instead in a red Charlie tabard. Instead of fighting, he raises up his hands.
I surrender. I'm not one of the Echo, I promise. I'm nothing more but a salesman that doesn't ask questions, okay? I've never stolen anything. Why are you here, then? I'm only here on business. Look, you two seem reasonable, except is your armor made of gold. That is really... Anyway, no, I'm only here on business. I sell enchanted rings, and these people just have the best prices. I don't ask questions.
Do you know anything about the missing people in Elmburg?
I've never been to Elmburg. I really don't know.
Then you're better off dead to us.
No, okay, I didn't say I didn't know anything, just that I didn't know anything about Elmburg, okay? I know for a fact, example, that chances are those missing people are dead. Denver the Devourer has been looking around, and he's a cannibal, that's his thing.
Alright, so, we have a name. What's behind that little door?
Rhet gestures with his dagger towards a little wooden door in the corner of the room that even Rhet would need to duck to get through.
Oh, that's where we keep our tabards. And okay, let's trade. I tell you everything I know so you don't kill me, and I never tell anyone that you know any of this, and you don't tell anyone I told you this. I came across all this information by chance, and Denver the Devourer will have us all three killed if he knows we know what we do.
Deal.
I know all of this is stolen. I sell their jewelry in the black market enough to raise money to buy out their slaves, like the little starved Naga in the other room. If they know I've been freeing them, they'll be absolutely furious because there's a very strict no-release rule because these slaves often know a lot of information about the guild. Behind that door are tabards, yes, and there's also a map of some sort. I don't know what it leads to, but if they keep it this guarded, it's probably someplace with a lot more guards. So I absolutely would not suggest going there. Now, you two came here, and you killed everyone and forcibly freed the young slave, but you did not see me here, okay? I know it's not the best way to go about freeing them, since it puts money into their hands, but it's all I can do.
Should we believe him, Khali?
Well, if he's lying, we release a guy who sells stolen stuff. If he's telling the truth, we lock up a guy that can free slaves. One of those is a little more hard to live with.
I see your point. Alright, go.
Thank you. I'll never tell anyone about this encounter.
The Charlie Avi runs off, and Rhet opens the little door to pull out a ton of echo tabards. Eventually, he finds a little crudely drawn map with an unlabeled X.
We need to go back to LJ.
The adventurers make their way back to the storage room, but when they do, they see the body of a recently killed Echo member flung through the door to the lobby. On the other side of the door is LJ.
Hi, I found out some dudes, and it's a good thing I decided to meet up with you to tell it, because there's a group of 5 bandits on their way in here.
When LJ sees the young Naga, she panics.
Oh, we need to get her to a doctor!
Yes, absolutely, and we've gotten some information too. We found a map in the back room, but we have no idea where it leads.
It goes to a marketplace. The adventurers and the sheriff look a little shocked to hear the Naga speak. That's where I work usually. It's not exclusive to the Echo Guild, though. Lots of thieves and cultists go there for supplies or, a place to stay when they're wanted in every nearby city. Lately, a big Naga that leads a cannibal cult has been staying there, and I've been working for him, but he won't give me anything other than elves to eat, and... The young Naga looks uncomfortable.
Look, I'll get you to the Elmburg orphanage, and you'll have plenty to eat there. Rhet and I will go through this market and try to find the Devourer.
You'll need me to find him, and also you need me to blend in because you two don't exactly look like thieves.
Oh, thank you.
No way am I letting you get in the way of danger.
Khali, I'd hate to put a little girl in the fray as much as the next person, but she has a point. You two would be found out in a second in a gang of thieves, and you're not exactly battle-hardened. I should go too.
Yeah, like nobody in a black market 6 feet from Elmburg is going to recognize the sheriff.
We're in a thieves' warehouse. I can find something to cover up with. In fact, while I have my royal sorcerer guarding the carriage, we should probably go ahead and leave now to make sure they don't have time to react to anything that just happened here.
LJ digs through the boxes for a long while before she finds a Delta tabard that fit her large frame and a hood that masked her face. She also grabs a 2-handed sword, as her battle hammer may be recognized by sharp eye. After they head back to the carriage, The royal sorcerer takes the several-hour trip to teach Rhet and Khali as much as he can about magic, but the two are so novice that there is only so much he can teach. They eventually come across a scarecrow along the road guarding no crops, and the two adventurers, the young Naga, whom they had learned was named Casey, and Elijah step out. The scarecrow has 4 strings tied to it at different heights.
It's been imbued with minor intelligence. It can perform a single action when it's signaled to, which is useful in that it's either meant to attack us or open a door, but not both. It also only has the touch sense, so the signal probably has something to do with these strings.
Only 3 of the strings look like they've been plucked a lot, so they're probably part of it.
Hold on. Let me try to detect paths taken here.
Using an easy spell that he had learned on the way there, Rhet focuses for a moment and closes his eyes as he uses his connection to magic to detect changes in aura. He finds that a lot of people traffic the 3 used strings, and the vast majority of them walk past the back one, then the right one, then the front one, before disappearing into the ground.
Okay, so I don't suppose they accounted for mages, because this seems pretty simple. I'm fairly certain we just pull them in a certain order.
Hey, not to ruin your fun, but I am sensing a lot of pulses down there. A lot.
Well, it is a market. To be fair, Rhet, a lot of thieves specialize in illusion magic, so they probably counted on mages being able to open this door. That's true.
Rhet pulls on the strings in that order and watches as the scarecrow casts minor illusion on the post it was tied to change its color. Shortly after, 4 spikes push out from the ground a few feet away, and an elf seemingly phases through the ground to peek at the adventurers and signal them in. Rhet recognizes major illusion has been disguising a trapdoor as he leads his party down the hidden entrance, and once they were completely underground, the elf closes the trapdoor. The elves don't seem to pay the adventurers any mind. Without a word, scared that they may blow their cover, they walk along the marketplace. Once they were in their hall, they saw booth after booth selling stolen or otherwise illegal goods, many of which were manned by people in Charlie tabards. Echoes were buying goods, and Deltas seemed to be the ones responsible for patrolling or escorting parties. Most of the people in the market, however, don't seem to have any association with the Echo Guild, and in fact, an elf from the Ashland Brewery is at a booth where he looks up at Elijah with a squint. Elijah stares him down as she puts her hand on the hilt of her sword, and the elf quickly goes back to minding his own business. At a booth that was just getting set up, Rhet sees a particular Avi in a Charlie tabard talking to a malnourished Raptrin. Raptrin, as their name would suggest, are another humanoid reptilian species that had evolved from velociraptors. Her skin is dehydrated, just as Casey's was, and there's not a doubt in anyone's mind that she's a slave.
Now, I know I'm late, but that's absolutely no excuse to have not begun to set up the booth without me. Your master's going to insist I pay him for the full time I rented you whether you're working or not, and he's definitely going to hear about this.
Once the Avi is done scolding the Raptorin, he turns and grows terrified at the sight of the adventurers. He turns tail and begins to run, but Rhet quickly summons a crystal bolt and sends it straight through the Avi's spine. The other market-goers seem rather unfazed after the initial jump.
So much for laying low.
He told us he was freeing slaves, not renting them.
Yeah, okay.
When the adventurers begin to walk towards the Raptorin, she charges at them and bumps into Rhet on their way past them. Wait, we're here to help. While Rhet was the fastest of the 3 and people got out of his way due to his pointy armor, the weight was still keeping him from running fast enough to keep from losing the tall creature in the crowd of people that were all taller than he. Elijah, however, barrels through the crowd and clears a path for the rest of the party to follow, and when she finally catches up with the Raptorin, she is surrounded by a few other people that have cornered her, while her arm is protectively over a Guardian slave brandishing a knife. One of the armed people cornering the 2 slaves point at Elijah.
You, Delta, is that lizard yours? Yes, and I take it that Guardian is yours? Yes, and if you—
Elijah draws her sword and swings it with such force that she nearly instantly beheads him.
Now they're both mine. Anyone want to challenge that?
The other folk that had cornered the slaves shake their head and mumble to themselves before scattering to go about whatever they had come to the market to do. After, Ella leans down towards the guardian that's pointing her knife at her to pull down her mask.
Hey, Crystal. It's me, Ella Sunbreak. I'm gonna get you out of here.
The guardian looks absolutely pleased and turns to her raptor friend to begin explaining so quietly that even Ella, who's leaned within feet of them, can't understand. Vel, this is Ella Sunbreak. She led the defense in the Battle of Juniper. I mean, we did lose that and ended up driven from our home, but because of her efforts, a good lot of us learned enough fighting skills to be able to live long enough to flee.
And she's a Delta now?
It's a disguise. She's the sheriff of Elmburg, so she'd be recognized in a heartbeat. We still gotta act upset, though. We don't want to blow her cover.
Got it.
The two follow the party as they aimlessly wander for an hour, but eventually Fel catches on that they have no idea what's going on.
Are you guys looking for something in particular?
In particular, no, but we do want to meet up with, Denver the Devourer?
After whatever just happened at the warehouse, that guy's already fled. He's too important to his cult to put himself in the line of danger, so he's looking for another place to lie low. However, of course, the guy isn't just gonna let Elmburg go. He's got an ethereal beast that he's been training to, destroy Elmburg.
Casey speaks up again, despite her usual quietness. The beast is nowhere near ready, though. He can smash stuff because he's big, but he was only recently pulled into the material plane, so he's still got ethereal sickness. It should only last a couple of days more.
Is he here?
Yes, he's the only room on the negative 3rd floor.
Okay. I'm putting you two back on the carriage to be guarded by my sorcerer, and then we're going after him.
They won't let you in without me.
I have a sword. I'll let myself in.
Casey nods, and the party drops the freed slaves off to be guarded at the carriage before they spend another couple hours trying to navigate deeper into the market. Eventually, they do make it to the lowest part of the 2nd floor, and Ella sees 2 Charlie guards.
Hi, does this lead to the ethereal beast?
Both of the guards ready their spears and charge, but Ella, being extremely experienced in battle, simply collapses down to cause the guards to trip over her, and then she finishes one off while Khali takes the other before they can collect their bearings.
Well, that was easier than expected. That's the only time I've gotten that to work, this perfectly. Well, that ethereal beast isn't getting deader while I'm standing here amazed at my own work, so let's go finish the job, shall we?
This is the 2nd intermission. I'll try to keep it short. I do apologize for any voice changes. I did get sick partway through recording this, and then after a while waited till I got better to record the rest after I had long forgotten all the voices. And for my second point, if you talk about this podcast either on social media, either on Twitter or Facebook, I don't have any other social media, and I apologize, then there's a chance you'll have a character named after you, which is an idea I'm stealing from the Adventure Zone, a Dungeons & Dragons podcast you should absolutely listen to at MaximumFun.org. It's a great podcast, you should listen to it. That's why I'm stealing their stuff. Hi, and don't sue me. Alright, and have fun listening to Act 3. Ella cautiously opens the door, and the 3 walk down a long flight of stairs that spill out into a large, mostly empty room. There they see a giant amalgamation, not only a creature summoned by the ether, but one that had gotten jumbled up in the process. It walks on 6 legs, 2 hooved and 4 with paws, although the front 2 were more like guardian paws in that they were designed to grab. The beast in total was nearly 2 stories tall in a casual stand, which made it barely small enough to fit in the room, and it certainly looked like it was anxious to lash out its anger from its trapped state. As the adventurers were still yet to be detected, they watched the body of an Avi in a Charlie uniform and another body of the man Ella had killed slide down into the room from a sort of chute, and, responding immediately, the beast turned and quickly ate both. Rhet was thankful for his armor. With a battle cry and Elijah's inability to be subtle, she begins to charge at the alerted beast. Rhet, thinking quickly, summons a crystal bolt and throws it at the beast. Although he was hoping to stagger it, it instead is only distracted by the wound to not react fast enough to Elijah to stop her from slashing at his leg. While neither attack did notable damage, the two combined enough for the beast to realize that it was in significant danger. It swings one of its front paws at Elijah and strikes her down. For added insult to injury, it strikes down again and smashes Elijah into the ground without mercy. Luckily, however, the beast was too limited by the low ceiling that he couldn't put all of his weight on her, although he did injure her enough to keep her down. Khali then charges and jabs at the beast with his enchanted spear. The enchantment fails to take, so he barely does any damage beyond a puncture wound on its already sliced paw. Rhet manages to use his novice magic to shoot forward 3 fire-based magic clusters. The first misses the beast entirely, but the second hits the beast in one of its eyes and the third hit his shoulder. Suddenly partially blinded, the beast daggers. Even Rhet is a bit surprised at how well he has done. Elijah, in her injured state, stands up, runs under the beast, and pushes her sword upwards. It does significant damage, but instead of making it worse, Elijah quickly sprints to a safe distance while the beast tries to rear in pain. Limping, half blind, and seriously hurt, the beast begins to take itself more seriously. It assesses Elijah as the absolutely most skilled, and again strikes down at her with his good paw, but loses balance. Before anyone has time to react, the beast charges at Elijah and near effortlessly scoops the exhausted and hurt guardian into its mouth. The beast looks a little pained, but then continues to roar at Khali. Khali remembers the stories passed down through generations, back in the days when elves were seen as just a particularly deadly sort of wildlife to Nagas. Unless the elf was killed before it was swallowed, it was common for other elves to gang up on the Naga and kill him within minutes to free the elf before they suffocated. There was a chance to save Elijah, and through that he found a new determination. He screeches back at the beast to taunt him, and when the beast charges, he reaches his spear up and slices its throat. In mere moments, the beast is on death's door, and Khali didn't wait for it to get to that point before slicing the beast's stomach. Due to its complete lack of knowledge of any anatomy at all, let alone the anatomy of an ethereal beast that had been converted to matter, he instead only slices at the beast's guts. Immediately after, however, Elijah's sword punctures through, and Khali helps from there. As he helps the elderly sheriff out, he realizes that she's dying, so he quickly lays her down and tries to heal her. He can feel her bones forming together, but they aren't healing back together to the way they were, but instead in whatever new shape the beast had crushed them in. Khali panics.
She's poisoned. The beast's claws must be laced or something, but I can't undo poison.
Poison! The partial restore! Rhet quickly pulls out the bottle of potion the Ashland gang had given him and pours its contents into the barely conscious guardian's mouth. Once she finishes, the poisoning effect stops, but Khali realizes that he can't undo the damage it's done.
We need to get her to a proper doctor.
Khali tries to lift her, but finds that she's too heavy to carry all the way back up to the surface, so he only places her on his tail with Rhet trailing behind him to keep her on. As they walk up through the market, no one seems too suspicious at the scene, and they get back to the surface without a problem. Fel and Crystal both look saddened at the sight of Elijah's state. Elijah, what happened?
I got a little too ambitious.
The carriage hurries back to Elmburg in complete silence, as Khali and the sorcerer try but fail to restore Elijah to her former glory. Once back in town, a couple of guards immediately jump to helping Elijah to the hospital in Little Elm. For weeks, the doctors try experimental spells and surgeries. On the dawn of the second week, Rhet and Khali, alone, are allowed to visit her.
Elijah, how are things looking? These doctors can heal wounds, but they can't turn back the clock. I'm old and we just don't react to the healing spells as well as the kittens, and getting poisoned and nearly suffocating has caused a few of my organs to fail. As long as I stay here, rested and constantly healed, I'll live another few months, they said, but if I try to walk out of here, the doctor said I could die.
Maybe you could hire a couple of doctors to follow you around, constantly healing you.
I'm not going to die, Khali. This isn't the first time I've come out of a fight and doctors told me I was done for. In a week, I'll be up and fighting again. Good to see you, as optimistic as always. I wanted to talk to you too. Since your stunt at the warehouse, there hasn't been a single missing person, and I think the Echo Guild has decided to leave this town alone for good. We saved the town, boys.
We did.
But Denver the Devourer is still out there, and I just got word from Greenpool and Suns Marsh that people are going missing there, and that there's been heightened Echo activity. I have 2 letters I wrote to send back to them. One says that I'm still recovering from the attacks on my city to send reinforcements, and the second says I'm sending my 2 most competent adventurers to continue their investigation. What do you say?
Well, I mean, I was headed to Greenpool when I stopped by here anyway. Rhet?
I've always wanted to travel, plus I think Casey would do better in an orphanage in a Naga city like Greenpool rather than, you know, the one here.
Send the second letter, LJ.
No, that's what I like to hear. You 2 head out. I'll see you when it's over.
When Rhet and Khali left with Casey southbound, it took nearly 2 days of hitching rides to stop by the city of Hearth on the way. As they checked into an inn, Rhet grabs a newspaper and sees the headline. LJ Sunbreak found dead in garden, cause of death, overexertion. It hit Rhet hard that the sheriff he had spent so much of his life around was gone, but it made him only so much more bound and determined to carry out her last request of him. Khali, having been born in Greenpool, couldn't have been more motivated, although he was there for Rhet to mourn.